Tibet here. Professor Anand Kumarji here is here in Dharamsala on the invitation of Tibetan Parliamentary and Policy Research Center, and this talk is being organized in cooperation with Tibet Policy Institute. It's a great honor for me to introduce Professor Anand Kumarji, to whom I have great respect and also have for some time being associated in working together in Delhi, not just for his support for Tibet and lifelong friend of Tibetans, but also for his astuteness and his academic capabilities. So during all these years that he taught in Banaras Hindu University for 10 years as lecturer, and then in JNU as associate professor, and then professor till July this year. Yeah. Now he retired, so he found some time to come out to Dharamsala. So I'm very grateful to Professor Anand Kumarji for having accepted to come to Dharamsala on the invitation of Tibetan Parliamentary and Policy Research Center. And with his very vast experience, I'm sure he will enlighten you on the topic, current political situation in India today and its relevance to the issue of Tibet. Professor Anand Kumarji today wants to spend a little more time in politics, and he is a founding member of the Aam Aadmi Party. He is in the National Executive, and he is now in charge of UP and Bihar. Unfortunately, Professor Anand Kumar did not win the last election, but we are looking forward to future elections where he can play a more stronger and proactive political role in running the government. Thank you very much, Professor. I leave the floor to you. It depends on you as to how long you speak, and then the rest of the time we'll spend on question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored and privileged to be with all of you. Some of them are like our teachers here in the front line who have educated us about the Tibetan challenge and the problems which are confronted jointly by people of Tibet and India because of a very aggressive and mindlessly nationalist neighbor. I came to Dharamsala nearly 20 years ago for the first time, when there was a big consultation in response to India's unguided and unprincipled approach to Tibetans in exile in her effort to please China. It happened when Prime Minister Li Peng came to Delhi, and handful of Tibetans decided to do their duty towards their motherland by protesting about Chinese occupation of Tibet, and Indian police, Delhi police, was mercilessly beating old women at Majnu Ka Tila, mishandling young students, female students without women constables, detaining all of them without due ground, and Supreme Court of India telling that Tibetans in India have every right, including burning of Indian flag if they so wish, because they are here with due process and permission. But we as Indian citizens, believing in freedom and democracy, felt very ashamed of ourselves, our amnesia, our paralysis, our passivity about Indian duty towards Tibet and towards Indian interests also. So we created a group, India-Tibet Friendship Society, and then we got guidance from all the senior Tibetan leaders. So that became the first opportunity. The last was when His Holiness Karmapa decided to come in exile and find a place with freedom. And we came to welcome him, appreciate his courage. And in that, we also came to Dharamsala, and there was a reception by Professor Rinpoche, who was then occupying chair, which is now with Pempa Seringla as Speaker of the Parliament. For last 10, 12 years, the Tibetans became so active in Delhi that there was no reason to come to Dharamsala. They were all available there, and some of them are now celebrated members of your Parliament, Acharya ji, and even Yeni, when she was a student of MA in my class, was a super active person. So this all gives me a great sense of joy and fulfillment, because nearly 20 years have passed and generation has changed in terms of the role of leadership and role of guidance. There was Tashi Wangdi, there was Samdang Rinpoche, there was Lodi Gary. Of course, Pempa Sering is still holding the fort, and they used to give us some ideas, but now there is a very different leadership. Similarly, Dharamsala used to be a place of more spirituality and less politics. Today I see a new Dharamsala. Very competent, capable people. I have been meeting these departmental heads from Parliament to Judiciary to Policy Research Center. So I speak to you with a sense of new confidence about the truthfulness and just cause which has put us together, the Indians and Tibetans, in one movement, in one boat, towards one goal and one direction. And that is peace and harmony in Tibet, justice for the people who are denied their due freedoms, and of course, harmony in the world. In these 15 to 20 years, Dalai Lama ji has emerged as Guru of India. He keeps on joking that Tibetans are Chela and Indians are Guru, but you see anywhere and everywhere. And he is the most wanted person to inaugurate a conference, address a convocation, put a foundation stone of a university, hospital. Anything good is associated with the Dalai Lama and therefore with the Tibetans in different parts of India. I wanted to tell you a few things which I see as the new elements in the political system of India and government system of India since the elections of 2014. Yes, it's true that I was also a candidate from the Bacha party, called Aam Aadmi Party. I contested from Northeast Delhi, which included part of Tibetan settlement as well, from Delhi University to Ghaziabad border. I got 4.5 lakh votes, but BJP candidate, who is a film star, obviously was more attractive, more handsome, more charming, singing and dancing, so he got elected. But that means that there is now a new capacity among the Indian people. All Congress candidates in Delhi got defeated, and in my case, he lost even his deposit. So this is the new India, where younger voters are more aggressive, more assertive. They are asking very uncomfortable questions about our failures, and they are asking for new initiative. And two areas of remarkable failure of India in the last 20 years are related with our development deficit and our security environment. India has become one of the most unevenly developed countries, and in the last 10 years there has been a very remarkable compromise of our economic interests against the requirements of sustainable development, and people are demystified about liberalization and privatization. India is 137th country in the global ranking of human indicators of development. Of course, India is a country which is global destination along with China for financial capital, for investment, because there is a huge market. Consumerism is growing, middle class is growing. But in terms of sustainable development, it is failing. So India has some of the most polluted rivers. India has some of the most militant protest movements against development through global capital. And we need a new compromise, a new compact to make things work. In search of solutions, the previous government fell into policy paralysis. So today we have a new situation. After 20 years, for the first time we have a government at the center with clear majority. And that is a good beginning. Secondly, the election for the first time was fought after a very long gap on the agenda of development. Not caste quota, not communalism, secularism, not regional disparity, but holistic development. And thirdly, policy leadership, policy innovations. So we have a situation where development deficit is a top consideration. Whoever is going to address developmental needs of India will be getting mandate. And even if the present government decides to move away and create something else like majoritarian democracy, Hindu majority, or anti-Muslim, anti-Christian, anti-Buddhist, anti-Sikh based politics polarization, there will be problem. The younger generation is in no mood to get divided around identity politics. It's a great departure. For development, holistic, sustainable, and against identity-based splits and divide and rule politics, vote bank politics. Secondly, India's humiliation is also making us think for new ways of making India a country of self-respect and a country we should not be fooled around with. The global situation of India is always contrasted with China. And China has been making remarkable achievements as first military giant and then economic giant. The elder brother of China is nowhere to be seen, Russia, Soviet Union, and they don't care for the Russians. The largest democracy of the world is being ignored by the democratic world, India, in comparison to China. China has become a darling of entrepreneurs. China has become a partner of both America as well as BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. I mean, it's everywhere. So far as China is concerned, in case of India, it is the elephant in the room. Much of India's problems are related with China. China has encircled India militarily. China has interfered with natural endowments of India, particularly river flows. You know about Brahmaputra River, Sangpo. What China is designing is anybody's guess except for the Tibetans. Tibetans have been telling the world that they are diverting the course of the river, and we were thinking that this is just Tibetan propaganda. Today, everybody knows around the world that Chinese have done a lot of fiddling with natural course of water drainage in that part which is occupied Tibet. Similarly, where we are in Himachal Pradesh, the water management by China, just above Himachal borders, is a crisis cause. Whenever there is extra rainfall, we are getting alarmed what will happen to the downflow part of that terrain, which is called now Himachal Pradesh. And Chinese are not allowing even our geologists, our hydrologists to go there. And incursions from Ladakh to Arunachal have increased. The visits by Dalai Lama were protested, and we took it in the stride that, well, wherever Dalai Lama goes, Chinese have the habit of objecting. But when the President of India visited Arunachal and Prime Minister of India visited Arunachal, they made strong objection. So now there is a new situation. For the first time in the Cabinet of India, we have a very important portfolio, Home Affairs, to a person from Arunachal. And this is a message for those in the world, particularly the Chinese, who think that Arunachal is a negotiable territory and is not related with India. After a long time, Prime Minister of India is seen to be not only speaking loudly and clearly, but also going around and talking to neighbors for creating new bridges. Mr. Narendra Modi, with whom my party has political differences, actually we were the strongest opponent of Mr. Modi in Varanasi. Varanasi is my hometown, and I campaigned like a lion against Mr. Modi. But I must give his initiatives proper assessment before you. He first invited all South Asian countries' leaders to his oath-taking ceremony, which was unprecedented. Secondly, he has covered Nepal, Bhutan, then Japan, with very serious diplomatic initiatives, open up the channels of communication. For example, in case of Nepal, there is a treaty of 1950. And Nepalese Maoists have been using that treaty as an example of India's imperialism, India's expansionism, because the few acres of land under that treaty were given to Indian army out of Nepalese land for some border monitoring activity. Now, what border monitoring you can do between India and Nepal when there is no passport, no visa, is a useless part of old strategy, old thinking. We must stop it. And now there are these super technologies of monitoring movement of people. Why you do need a few hundred soldiers in another country's land? So Mr. Modi has promised, and I was there last week with the President of Nepal in Rashtrapati Bhavan, and this was to celebrate 100 years of their great fighter for democracy, Sri B.P. Koirala, who spent more time in jail than outside and in exile, just like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but of course there is no comparison between the two. And the President of Nepal and many other people in that get-together were appreciating Mr. Modi's openness. And they said that he has disarmed all anti-India propaganda by agreeing to open communication and dialogue about 1950 treaty. Similarly, his visit to Japan has been a good signal that India is not scared of China. In diplomacy, India has been avoiding all those people and countries who were in conflict or competition with China, just to keep China happy. But Chinese don't know how to be happy. I mean, Chinese politicians. Chinese people are as happy or as unhappy as any other people. They are noble and simple people. They are inheritors of a great civilization. But Chinese politicians are always complaining type, very bargaining type. But by visiting Bhutan and Japan in one stroke, Mr. Modi has created a new expectations set, and we can call it a new discourse in foreign policy, where neighbors are to be given priority. In case of China, at the same time, neighbors are on the hit list. All neighbors of China are facing open and sometimes indirect threats of strategic kind. So just last week, our president went to Vietnam and signed a treaty with Vietnam. You remember Vietnam was once darling of China. And it was the site where Chinese were putting all their focus to prove American guilt, which was a very huge mistake of the Americans. What was the reason for American armies to be in Vietnam? In any case. But today, Vietnam is an ugly neighbor who is not loved by Chinese anymore. And India is extending olive branch to Vietnam. This politics is backed by quest for dignity by average Indian. So there is an element of new patriotism. It is not economic nationalism. It is patriotism of a different variety, where economic globalism, along with respect for national dignity, national security. You remember Narendra Modi saying in so many public meetings that we are run by a leadership, we are organized, we are led by a leadership which invites such forces to dinner for biryani, a biryani dinner, who are killing our soldiers, beheading our soldiers. So it's a clear message for both Pakistan and China, who are militarily very aggressive in a symbolic sense. And you can expect Mr. Modi to lead a team of ministers on a dialogue table supported by Defense Minister and Foreign Minister to talk to China after doing proper strategizing. So this is one very important shift in last 3 months, which is clearly visible. New initiatives in foreign policy, new initiatives with neighbors. And this is going to have direct and deep impact on our strategic preparedness. They are very critical, the present leadership, and that's another important shift compared to NDA 1. NDA was National Democratic Alliance, which had Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee as the Prime Minister. And Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee made a treaty with China, which is considered to be very bad treaty by even Bharatiya Janata Party. Because in that treaty they decided to sign that they believe, India believes that Tibet Autonomous Region is an integral part of China and an internal affair of China, which was further diluted stand than even Nehru's position. So they want to correct it. But they need adult education. Most of the members of parliament today of any political party are small pocket leaders. Some of them have been recruited to politics around identity issues. Mandir banayenge, Ram ka mandir banayenge. So they know about geography of Ayodhya, but they don't know about geography of India. Most of them have not visited Himalayan India except those who have come from Himalayan regions. Much of politics is now shifting towards south. They are worried about Jayalalitha because NDA doesn't have support in Tamil Nadu. They are worried about Orissa because in Orissa, most of the seats have been won by a regional party. They are worried about Mamata, West Bengal, because BJP got only very, very few seats. So Himalayan India, which has given strong support from Leh, Ladakh to Arunachal to the present government, is now on a list of priority in terms of neglected areas, zone of policy paralysis, because people of these areas are very restive. They are asking for infrastructural support. They are asking for better centers of education, health, livelihood. When you go to these parts of Himalayas, these parts of India, they say we have two problems. One is migration to plains, because nothing is there in hills. Palayan. If they are not going anywhere in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, then they are going to Dehradun. In Himachal Pradesh, if they have no other place to go, they come to Chandigarh. They don't have sustainability. And second, they are saying environmental destruction by mining mafia is a common problem. If you go to Arunachal and Himachal and Uttarakhand, there is a third problem. In the name of energy projects, hydroelectric projects, they are playing very rough game with the rivers of these areas. And one of the consequences was Kedarnath tragedy. So there is going to be rethinking about India's neighbor policy, India's foreign policy, particularly with focus on security, and India's development policy, particularly around energy and environment of the Himalayan region. There, all of you, friends of India, the Tibetans in exile who are settled in many of these parts, can play a very active role, because you are respected by all those who are part of NDA. NDA is constituted by such parties which have been critical of Nehru's defense policy, foreign policy, and have taken war of China as a shameful episode of our experience. So we have a common memory of humiliation and defeat. Your story starts from 1949. Our story starts from 1959. I have, I think, 3 expectations from the present changes which have taken place in last 6 months. First of all, there will be new language between India and China. This doesn't mean that India will recognize Taiwan or India will ask for freedom of Tibet. No. India will try to talk a language which is not going to discourage the global investors. Because if you use military path for any conflict resolution, the first group of people who run away from your site is entrepreneurs. They think war is about to take place. Let's get away from here. It's a disturbed area. So India will not use that language. But certainly India will like to use the language of negotiation and strategic communication. Already something has started. As I said, by underlining the significance of Bhutan, Nepal, Vietnam, Japan, Australia. So there may be a new discourse of India-China relationship in the making, provided we do our job. Many of the old friends of Tibet are members of parliament. Some of them are ministers. And we must call on them. We must congratulate them. We must felicitate them. The biggest China supporters bloc, the lobby within Congress and CPM, is reduced, decimated. There are only 44 members of the Congress party. And some of the old guards like Natwar Singh are no more there. So we must use this opportunity of openness. Many of the opposition parties in parliament, like Samajwadi Party, Janata Dal United, Biju Janata Dal, Trinamool Congress, is led by people who have been supporters of Tibetan cause. So even the opposition ranks are occupied by friends of Tibet and who don't trust China, like CPM believes. CPM still believes that in 1962 it was India who attacked China. And they continue arguing like that. But all other parties who are there in opposition, also there is a near national consensus. So that's one point in terms of the relevance of political changes which have taken place at the national level in India. One change is emergence of development as the agenda of politics, not identity. Number 2 change is rise of a very strong government at the center after 20 years with clear majority, a single party with reliable allies. And third change is a need to change the image of India from a country with policy paralysis to policy clarity. Friends, these 3 changes are going to create a few possibilities. First possibility, as I said, is the new pattern of relationship with China, because China for India is the elephant in the room. Global investors, including American companies, first go to China and try to see where they can fit in China-India together. Chinese investment in, American investment in China is around $400 billion. And in India it has 40 billion. Though India is democracy, China is not. Why? Because India is subordinated militarily by the Chinese since 1962. So that's one line of change. Second line of change is going to be about Himalayan India. Himalayan India is one of the most underdeveloped and neglected part. Actually, whenever we go to the Himalayan part and ask people about their feelings, they say, oh, the last time we experienced development was soon after China attacked India. ये दिल्ली वालों का दिमाग तभी ठीक होता है जब चाइना की तरफ से गड़बड़ी होती है. It sounds very unpatriotic, आनंद कुमार जी, लेकिन आप लोग तभी हमारे तरफ ध्यान देते हैं, इधर आते हैं जब चाइना आपके ऊपर गड़बड़ी पैदा करता. तो एक बार और चाइना थोड़ा मिलिट्री एक्सरसाइज कर दे तो फिर तेजपुर, बोमदिल्ला, नाथुला को आप लोग याद करेंगे, समझेंगे. नहीं तो कोई इधर ना आता है, न जाता है और न कुछ करता है. But now, as I see, there's a Himalayan lobby where some parties are in opposition. Congress is ruling Himachal Pradesh, is ruling Uttarakhand. So there will be some competitive development politics. And that will create new awareness of the relevance of Tibet. And the third is your own credibility. There was always this complaint from common neutral people whenever we went to campaign for the Tibetan cause, including signature campaigns, talking to politicians, talking to media people. You are talking about Tibet, but there is not much of news from Tibet. This is all happening around Dharamsala, MacLeod-Ganj, Majnu Katila, Bangalore. Tibet में क्या खबर है? But since Beijing Olympic, there is growing information flow about unrest in Tibet. And as I was telling your leadership in my several meetings since this morning, that the number of sacrifices, the number of self-immolations in search of freedom and justice by the Tibetans is the largest anywhere in the world in the last 500 years. Not even in case of India, which had a 90 years long history of freedom struggle, so many people voluntarily gave their life for their nation. We have a score of them: Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Ashfaqullah, Bismil. But it doesn't go beyond 40, 50. Others may have been shot by police in encounters, but voluntarily committing self-immolation. And we are all ashamed that we are free. We believe in human unity, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and we are doing nothing. The second component of Tibetan cause is the Dalai Lama's capacity to lead global opinion in a consistent manner towards cultivating goodness and compassion. Tibetans have been protesting all these years. There are supporters of Tibetans, but Chinese can never complain that they are in a hate campaign. There has been never vilification of the Chinese, demonization of the Chinese. The Dalai Lama has been always saying, and so has been the voice of the Tibetans, that it is the policymakers, the politicians, the state of Tibet, China, which is guilty. So the idea of supporting Tibetans is not necessarily connected with treating Chinese as villains and enemies. And that has created great goodwill. I can tell you that in the last 15 years, it has become genuinely the top global movement. Earlier it was Vietnam, then it was replaced by South Africa. Today, among the global concerns, Tibet is the top concern around the world because of your active, consistent, constructive, and dialogical approach. And thirdly, there is also a need for India to redefine its strategic contours. All neighbors of India are pressurizing for much more engaged India if it really wants to do something, otherwise China is an option. Chinese are offering Nepalese to create railway line via Kathmandu up to Bhairava. So Nepalese are saying, get together and join us in our development. Otherwise, Chinese are waiting at the doorstep. Bhutan is saying the same. Myanmar is already occupied. I was with Aung San Suu Kyi 2 months ago, and she was saying that today I have to face not the military junta of Myanmar. It is the Chinese economic interest which is preventing full-blown democracy in Myanmar. I have to assure them that their interests will be protected. But if I assure them, then what will be the meaning of Myanmar's democratic development? It will be impossible. So friends, these are the implications. All of them are asking for a new hope. Politically, there are differences. As I told you, Aam Aadmi Party doesn't like politics of Bharatiya Janata Party. But how does it matter? Because majority is with a leadership which is promising development, end of policy paralysis, and return of glamour and glory to India as a nation state in the Committee of Nations. In this new situation, I think your investment is going to give us some results. You have people who have been engaged with Tibetan cause, who are aware of the limits and failures of India's China policy, India's Tibet policy, India's border policy. Only thing is to help them in reconfiguring our perspective so that the economic environment is not vitiated. Let me tell you the limits of our hope. First limit is that Indian middle class has become consumerist, and nearly all households are invaded by products made in China, from electric bulb to mobile phone to Ganesh Lakshmi. Most of it is China made and cheaper. So Chinese boycott, disengaging China, is not going to appeal. Secondly, there is huge investment of Indians in China. So there is a corporate class which is backing the present government, which will like to explore and get deeper into Chinese economy. And they are going to watch us, our demands, our suggestions. And third, globally, the culture of dialogue is getting more prominence than culture of conflict. Even Talibans are being invited by Barack Obama. Rajnath Singh is inviting Naxalites. So we have to think about terms and conditions and questions which should be there on the table for dialogue between India and China under the new regime. I think you all have been working on it with help of your own leadership and experts from the world. Please help India to find its role afresh in a more effective manner in creating peace in Himalayas, freedom and justice together in Asia. And that's where I guess a lot of us, Tibetans and friends of Tibet, have a common duty, common possibility and common responsibility. I hope that I have created some questions in your mind, and we can put the later part of our time for this session. You had a long day, isn't it? Parliament was also very active, and all of you had your responsibilities, so I'll not like you to detain beyond a reasonable limit. I think this session is supposed to be up to 6:30? Up to 7? Okay, whatever. Now I'm in the hands of Honorable Speaker, and please, I'll be very happy with your questions or observations. Thank you.
Let's open the floor for questions and comments. With your
Yes.
so many years of experience, you know Tibetans are very shy in asking questions.
I have some very good friends, so I mean, they will not like to. They can represent the group by asking questions because they know that we love to talk. And if you don't ask question, meeting will be over, and dinner is still 45 minutes away. Let's start with Acharji, who promised that there will be some. Acharya, you have a question? Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your very promising speech regarding our issue. But then, how do we counter? How do we, in fact, respond to certain some of the intellectuals who say, like, partly the conflict between China and India is partly by the Tibetans in exile. As just day before yesterday, we got the opportunity to hear Mr. Mohan
Guruswami,
who says that. So how do we respond to such kind of allegations? Whereas we believe that we are supposed to be the buffer.
This is a very important question. And this question was used till a couple of years ago when the Tibetan leadership directly and emphatically asked all Tibet friends in India and around the world not to disturb programs of Chinese leaders, not to burn effigy of Chinese leaders, not to burn Chinese flag. And this made us very passive. They come and go, and we don't do much. The argument about India-China conflict has grown beyond this tiny little presence of Tibetans in exile in India. 100,000. How many? And what activities they do? One of the most soft protesters. They have never harmed bodily a single Chinese diplomat in last 55 years, since 1959. But there is this Brahmaputra Valley problem. Ask Assamese, and they'll tell you the reason of conflict between India and China. Incursions in Ladakh, it has nothing to do with Tibetans in exile. They're not coming out to arrest a few Tibetans settled in Ladakh, and they have done it more than 300 times in last 3 years. Their encirclement, buying an island, leasing out an island from Indonesia to create a naval base, not to send missile to Dharamsala, where His Holiness and a few of you are living. Making India undesirable in whole of Africa. Making India a villain in Nepal. This school of thought is a very small group of people led by a group of newspapers pro-CPM called Hindu group, and Mr. N. Ram, who is a known apologist for China. He goes for Tibet for 4 or 5 days and writes 30 pages of how beautiful Tibet has become. And then there is compulsion of the reader's pressure to cover stories of self-immolation. How both things are happening. And Mr. N. Ram is no more with Hindu. He has been removed from Hindu's group. So Mohan Guruswami need not worry about this argument that Tibetan presence in India makes Chinese so unhappy with Indians. We have declared on behalf of India that for us, TAR is an integral part of China, an internal affair of China, and still Chinese have not changed. Not a bit. They have not given us map of middle part of Himalayas about what they think is their territory. Where is the dividing line between us? If not McMahon line, then which line? It has nothing to do with Tibetans in exile. 19th round of meeting is about to take place between military representatives of India and China. And every time they forget to bring the map, they say next time. Is no argument at all.
Any other question, comments? Tanay mebe. Okay.
Ji,
Yeah,
please.
You just said that what I perceived from your talk, especially the last part of it, I think there was a kind of request from the government of India or people of India to show a mild kind of approach towards China, especially when their leaders are visiting this country. I was really not able to understand what actually you are asking the Tibetans to.
No. It was a request of the Tibetan leadership not to do any aggressive protest activity by Tibet support groups, because they had raised it in probably one of the meetings during the dialogue sessions, that you are creating a negative image. Your supporters are burning our national flag. So this was not Government of India request. It was Tibetan administration, not really administration. Yeah.
Second thing is, some time ago, the Prime Minister of India, he went to Japan, and he came with the investment of 35 billion worth of investment for this country. And today we are told that
Chinese.
Xi Jinping, he is coming with about $100 billion of investments. And with so much money coming in to this country, where at present, as we understand, there's a lot of need and requirement for investments and
Yes.
FDIs and all that. In that scenario, do you think that the Prime Minister of India, while he sits across with Xi Jinping, in his one-to-one meet, he would be able to put a reasonable, assertive kind of demand to Xi Jinping with regard to the things that's happening within Tibet and with regard to things that they are doing across the border all around Himalayan region.
I think they'll be walking on two legs, just like the Chinese are doing. Economically engagement and strategically what you call critical negotiation. Not endless, because there is need, and actually there is a promise that there will be no policy paralysis, including relations with our neighbors. So it will be a proactive dialogue. If it fails, just like it has failed temporarily with Pakistan, because they decided to cancel the meeting between foreign secretaries, because ambassador of Pakistan invited the pro-separatist leaders from Kashmir, and our embassy, our foreign office asked them not to do, and he did not listen to it. So maybe that comes to, but Mr. Modi has been criticized for that, because it was treated as a major mistake by Mr. Modi. He had opened up a channel, and army trapped us by such silly activity. We should have strengthened the democratic face of Pakistan, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, which army doesn't want to see as a strong leader. And by making Mr. Nawaz Sharif defensive, or by blaming Mr. Nawaz Sharif, we have made him weaker. So we'll have to deal with military, and military has a vested interest in keeping Kashmir question hot and boiling, so that more money, more corruption, etc., etc. So India has to be playing a very strategic card, where border issue, where India is not on the wrong. Arunachal to Ladakh has been underlined by the previous regime. Manmohan Singh visited Arunachal and made it clear that no, it is not negotiable. India has to go beyond Manmohan Singh. And there is this army dimension also. Army of India is pressurizing, and there again there was policy paralysis, for a better strategy at the naval level, with Australia, Asia Pacific, and in the Himalayan region. They are calling it modernization. Actually, modernization means more nuclearization, more aggressive capacity. So, by walking on two legs, on the one hand, engaging China more economically, and along with others, not Chinese monopoly. So, China and Japan together in the same boat is like Samp Nevla. China doesn't want Japan, and Japan doesn't want China, and India wants both. So that will be an advantage to India. And second, the strategic aggressiveness in dialogue, because Chinese are not keeping their promises, right from Atal Bihari Vajpayee days. So hopefully, and this will be helped only if the people like our strategic experts, two Tibet support groups, are asking for new initiatives on the floor of the parliament, in the media, and in the streets. If there is no pressure from popular side, Mr. Modi will have no reason to not to listen to his corporate allies, who will say, छोड़ो इसको, अभी जाने दो. देखो ताइवान के बारे में क्या किया अमेरिका ने, कुछ नहीं किया. They recognize China and they are gainers, and Taiwan is still a friend of America. So let Tibetans do their thing. Do not become too aggressive about it, because Chinese will take it as an impolite gesture. But we have been waiting for Chinese reciprocity since Atal Bihari Vajpayee signed the agreement in 2003, 2004. It has been 10 years of waiting. How long should we be waiting? Yeah.
One other question. We also got to hear that this time round, when Xi Jinping is coming to India, he is coming with some aggressive demands about the Tibetan government exile, which he will put before the government of this country or the prime minister of this country. What is your take on that?
I think the last time such a stupid mistake was made by Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. He was a young prime minister in a hurry, and he communicated through Foreign Office to His Holiness to think of an alternative site, and soon it boomeranged. No government is, as long as China is occupying more than 100,000 square kilometers of Indian land, and Indian army is aggrieved about it, no government in India has the capacity to say anything about the methodology of Tibetans in exile, because they are, as I told you, Dalai Lama ji is the most wanted VIP within Indian subcontinent for anything good happening anywhere. So to say that Dalai Lama ji and his followers are doing something so objectionable that they should wind up their initiatives and activities will be playing with fire. There will be total and absolute rejection, except for a few handful of CPM intellectuals, and maybe China, I will not call them China agents, China loyalists. Rest will have to be on the same side of the debate, that this is not done. You remember what was said by German Liberal Party when they hosted the conference. The Chinese said that we'll close your office. The German Liberal Party, which was a much smaller party than BJP, said, we know how to deal with our guests, and please don't tell us what to do with our guests in our own country. You may close down our office. I think there will be a much more clear response to such a request, and I don't think that such a request will come.
Now see, once the ice is broken.
आपने थोड़ा मदद कर दिया.
So what would be your position if you were in power today during the visit of Xi Jinping regarding of the Tibet? And sorry, and my next question is, our party has won the Delhi last
Vidhan Sabha election.
but again you have resigned.
Yeah.
And now you are fighting back.
Yes.
So what were the reasons
Yeah.
This is called political somersault.
In case of what should be a healthy peace and conflict resolution strategy of Indian Prime Minister with such massive mandate on a dialogue table with China, who is a permanent neighbor and an economic partner, and is also an ally in resisting G8 and World Bank and IMF mastering of economy in the form of BRICS. You know, India is developing partnership with China through an alternative alliance. Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. They're also creating a bank now. So it is not that we are strangers to each other. But there will be reason to talk on the table about certain, what we call, points of discomfort. And one of them will be territorial conflict. And we'll have to talk about it. How politely, it will depend upon our capacity, what we are offering to them and what they are offering to us. If they want to sink 100 billion of their money in Indian economy, means that they want to engage. India has a position of advantage today. India is not a factory of the world, but India has become bazaar of the world. Americans want to put their money here, produce and sell. Japanese want to do it, Germans want to do it, so does the Chinese entrepreneurs because of our growing middle class. And our manufacturing sector is rather bad and weak. So till we become self-reliant in manufacturing sector, upgrade our technology, everybody will like to come in our railways, in our textile, in our energy. These are all gold mines for them. So it is not that they will be in a situation of close and shut, that take it or leave it. No, China is no more in that condition. India as a market, if not as a military power, has some relevance. And Chinese economy is not in best of health either. आम आदमी पार्टी का प्रॉब्लम ये था कि इट वाज सेकेंड लार्जेस्ट पार्टी. दिल्ली हैज 70 असेंबली सीट्स, सो क्लियर मेजॉरिटी रिक्वायर्स 36. बीजेपी गॉट 32, 4 short of clear majority. Aam Aadmi Party got 28, so it was 8 short of majority. Congress got 8, and Congress, to prevent BJP, offered unconditional support to Aam Aadmi Party. Aam Aadmi Party had said that Congress and BJP are Mausera Bhai, two sides of the same coin. Both are with black money, bad politics, and corrupt politicians. So there was a pressure from below, our elected MLAs, our voters, that BJP is not forming the government. Congress is giving unconditional support. You go and form the government. So we made a 17-point letter to Congress and BJP both, that this is our agenda. When we come into power, we'll do these things. One of the first items was putting an inquiry into Bijli Ghotala, putting an FIR against Ambani. Third was an inquiry committee against Chief Minister of Delhi. Congress said everything okay. Jan Lokpal was number one demand, that we'll put a Jan Lokpal. But after 49 days, when we tried to put Jan Lokpal bill, which was to put Chief Minister of Delhi under Right to Information and Inquiry Act, they said don't put it here, first send it to Lieutenant Governor. Lieutenant Governor is a nominee of President of India. President of India was belonging to Congress party, Shri Pranab Mukherjee. So obviously he will sit on it, and as long as he is not forwarding the bill, we will not be able to pass it. So we wanted to pass it in the House. And then Congress and BJP got united. So they became 36 plus 8, 44. And they said this government is in minority, we withdraw support, and you sack them. Before it could be handed over to Lieutenant Governor, as long as they had capacity to take decision, they decided to recommend dissolution of the assembly, which can be done by the cabinet, which is still in majority on the floor of the house. So there was no confidence against, there was no confidence against the government, but they had voted down our proposal, so it was an indirect no confidence. So we took technical advantage and we recommended dissolution of assembly, fresh elections, so that there can be a clear majority government. But in doing this, we did not consult the people. So middle class got angry. When you wanted to take support from Congress, which was declared corrupt and bad party by you guys, you came and took referendum. But when you wanted to resign, you did not ask us. So this is irresponsible politics. It is bacha politics. You people are good for protest, but not good for governance. And we want governance. तो अभी पहले तो हम लोगों ने बोला नहीं नहीं हमने त्याग किया, हम लोग गांधी जी का बेटा है, लाल बहादुर शास्त्री, चरण सिंह, चंद्रशेखर. जनता डिड नॉट एग्री विद दैट, सो वी हैव अपोलोजाइज कि ठीक है आप सही हैं, आगे से जान चली जाएगी लेकिन कुर्सी नहीं छोड़ेंगे. Now there is increasing popularity in voters' eyes because BJP was not able to control price. पुलिस हफ्ता मांग रही है. आप जाके जरा पूछिएगा लद्दाख बिहार में तिब्बती भाई बहनों से क्या हो रहा है. करप्शन इन ट्रांसपोर्ट, ट्रैफिक, लाइसेंस, अस्पताल इज बैक. तो लोग कहते हैं कि वो सब अच्छे थे, बेवकूफ़ तो थे लेकिन अच्छे थे. एंड नाउ दे हैव टू बी कंट्रोल बेटर. तो अभी हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं कि सिग्नेचर कैंपेन चला रहे हैं. जब जाते हैं दरवाज़ा खुलवाते हैं, कहते भाग जाओ, तुम तो इस्तीफा दे दिया भगोड़ा. फिर कहते नहीं बहन जी हमारा बात सुनिए. देन दे लिसन टू अस. तो थोड़ा हमारा भी पोलिटिसाइजेशन हो रहा है, मेच्योरिंग हो रहा है, और थोड़ा जनता का भी गुस्सा थोड़ा ठंडा हो रहा है. पीपल आर सेइंग दैट इन द लोक सभा वी गॉट 33% वोट. इफ द इलेक्शन टेक्स प्लेस टुडे, Delhi voters are going to give us around 42%. BJP still has 51% and 6-7% for Congress and other parties. तो हमारा थोड़ा सा रिटर्न पर तो हम लोग हैं. And we have also decided to be careful not to contest every election. Focus all our energy in Delhi. That has created anger in Haryana and Maharashtra. वहाँ भी चुनाव था. वो बोले हम क्या करेंगे. हम लोगों ने बोला तुम इधर आके प्रचार करोगे. But first, like a garib person, first we make one room so that we can sleep in one room. Then we'll make another room, then toilet, then living room, then swimming pool. अभी सब नहीं बनाने का पैसा, इसलिए अभी एक ही जगह. So we are concentrating in Delhi and hopefully we will do something.
People, and since Chinese president visited Ahmedabad, which is near to Baroda, where Tibetan students, all Tibetan students study there, around 80-something students were locked down, locked in I think hall here, hall. So there's one part which, like, I personally felt bad about this undemocratic act. My question is that I'm going to forward a question which I've already asked to Mr. Pankaj Mishra, a well-known author, when he gave talk in this hall last time. So my question goes like that: since Election Commission of India has made it legal that Tibetan refugees can apply for voter ID card, and even Tibetan people were born before 1987 are eligible for Indian citizenship. So which led to one section of our Tibetan community saying that, the Indian passport on our hand might dilute our Tibetan movement. And one section of our Tibetan community saying that with Indian passport on our hand, it can strengthen our Tibetan community, Tibetan movement. So I would like to invite your view on this issue. Thank you.
Well, first of all, Government of India detaining Tibetans and preventing them from their right to protest is against the judgment of Supreme Court of India. They should remember the instructions of judiciary about it. Yes, if the protesters are not peaceful, they become violent, then you have to control them and detain them. But as long as they are only giving a memorandum, shouting slogans, walking without creating any law and order problem, they have the right and they should have been allowed. But you know that this police system is the last part of our government which will be ever changing. Recently, soon after Mr. Modi was elected and his party was given a lot of votes by young people, in my own constituency around Delhi University, Mukherjee Nagar, there was a protest about our civil service examination where English is given undue preference over Indian languages. So they were sitting on hunger strike, not attacking anybody. And they were beaten very badly. That included volunteers and supporters of Akhil Bharati Vidyarthi Parishad also. So this is something which is like a gap between the leader and the policing system, and they have to pay for it. अब जब हम उधर जाते हैं तो लोग ज़्यादा हमारे साथ फ़ोटो खिंचाते हैं, हाथ मिलाते हैं, सर बहुत गलती हो गया, मनोज तिवारी को वोट दे दिया, उनका पार्टी तो हमको धोखा दिया, हमको पुलिस उनका पीटता है. But this is something which police has to learn. In Delhi also, if they have violated, if they have beaten up our Tibetan volunteers, they deserve total condemnation because you have no right to beat me as long as I am not violent. The issue of citizenship. The world community has some experiences. People have gone in exile and done a lot of work for their cause, returned home and restored their citizenship. But His Holiness few years ago, I think when we were much younger, had given the advice not to do away with your identity papers. Try to marry within the community. I think these were two advices by His Holiness. He was not saying that it is a law because community is so small and it will look like demoralization as long as there is no radical difference between holding an Indian passport and having a Tibetan identity paper for the purposes of your accommodation, admission, health, travel. Try to keep your Tibetan paper. Other forms of identity will remain undiluted even if you change your citizenship, your language, your physical appearance, your customs, your rituals, your religion, your memories. They'll remain the same. I have one big example in support of changing citizenship or those who want to change citizenship. There was a man called Willy Brandt. He was a German who was against Nazis and Hitler. And he could not survive as German passport holder because outside Europe, outside Germany, he was treated like a Nazi. And inside Germany, he was treated as anti-Nazi. So na ghar mein chain, na bahar chain. Like most of the Pakistani Democrats. Outside they are treated like terrorists. नामी है मुजफ्फर या हसन और रहमान और शाहरुख खान तो मुसलमान है तो टेररिस्ट होगा और घर में ही इज डेमोक्रेट against fundamentalists, against mullahs. So Mr. Willy Brandt became for 6-7 years citizen of a neighboring country, I think Denmark, because Austria was also under Nazi influence. जैसे ही हिटलर का मामला खत्म हुआ, मारा गया, जीत गया, वो वापस आए और उन्होंने अपना जर्मन सिटीजनशिप ले लिया. And he emerged as the top leader, chancellor of Germany. तो उससे उनका जर्मन आइडेंटिटी भी नहीं कंप्रोमाइज हुआ, बहुत भी चीज़ें नहीं हुआ. ऐसा बहुत सारे हिंदुस्तानियों ने भी किया. फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल में यहाँ से चले गए श्यामजी कृष्ण वर्मा और लाला लाजपत राय. वो लोग सिटीजनशिप तो पता नहीं बदला कि नहीं बदला, लेकिन देश बदल दिया. गदर पार्टी का सारा लोग. और वहाँ से बहुत कुछ उन्होंने भारत के स्वाधीनता के लिए किया. So it has to be an individual decision. Very recently, one of my students, she is without her parents. माँ भी नहीं है, पिता भी नहीं है. She did her BA from one of the Delhi colleges, came to JNU, did her MPhil. All other students of Delhi, JNU, are getting a fellowship. She has to pay international rate. वो तो खैर किसी तरह से माफ हो गया. But she doesn't have much support and she doesn't want to take money from her brothers and sisters. स्कॉलरशिप सब बच्चों को मिल रहा है, उसको नहीं मिल रहा है. अगर वो इंडियन बन जाए तो उसको भी मिलेगा. And for next 4 years she will live a life of dignity and self-reliance without being burdened. और वो बहुत डिलेमा में थी, क्या करें क्या नहीं करें. And she is Tibetan to the core. कोई भी तिब्बत इशू पर मीटिंग होता है तो वो पीछे बैठी रहेगी और हाथ उठा के सवाल पूछेगी, और कोई गलत बात बोला गया तो बहुत फर्मली और स्ट्रांगली उसको रिबट करेगी, इंक्लूडिंग हर ओन एग्जामिनर. जो उसका एमफिल थीसिस एग्जामिनर था, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी का प्रोफेसर, उसने कुछ तिब्बतन्स के बारे में कह दिया कि वो बहुत एथनोसेंट्रिक है, हिमालयन बुद्धिस्ट के साथ मतभेद करते हैं. वो खड़ा होके बोली कि नहीं, ऐसा बिल्कुल गलत आप बोल रहे हैं. एंड देन ही केम एज एग्जामिनर. वो डरी हुई थी कि हमारा नंबर कम कर देंगे, नंबर उसने ज़्यादा दिया, कहा तुम बहुत अच्छी लड़की हो, यू आर ए गुड टिबेटन. तो ये डिसाइड आपको करना पड़ेगा, इसको थोड़ा और सीरियस कंसल्टेशन में लाना पड़ेगा. हमारा कोई उपाय इसमें काम नहीं करेगा. माई सजेशन विल बी no good, because I have not experienced that kind of trauma of being a stateless person in a very nationalist atmosphere of country like India, जहाँ पुलिस से लेकर के मकान किराएदार तक सब आपको परेशान करते हैं because you don't have a permanent identity of being Indian. और हर जगह और को अगर 1 रुपया में वो चीज़ होगा तो आपको ₹1.25 रुपया में, ₹1.5 रुपया में, ₹2 रुपया में करना पड़ेगा. I was in exile in America. इमरजेंसी यहाँ लग गया था, तो वहाँ पर लोग बोले कि अब 10-20 साल तुम्हारा देश में डेमोक्रेसी नहीं आएगा. ईरान में ख़त्म, चिली में ख़त्म, ब्राज़ील में ख़त्म, तुम्हारा भी यही हाल होगा. तो हमको जब डिपोर्ट करने लगे भारत सरकार का रिक्वेस्ट पर, तो हमको हमारा लीगल डिफेंस में यहाँ से लोगों ने कहा वहीं रुक जाओ, सीधे तिहाड़ जेल ले जाएंगे. और वहाँ का लॉयर बोला कि डिपोर्टेशन प्रोसीडिंग रोकना बहुत मुश्किल है, आपका सरकार आपको मांग रहा है, एक ही तरीका है कि आपका सिटीजनशिप बदल दिया जाए. तो आप बाय मैरिज या बाय असाइलम यू कैन बिकम प्रोटेक्टेड फ्रॉम दिस वेरी डेंजरस पॉसिबिलिटी. लकीली उसी समय अमेरिकन स्टूडेंट जहाँ पढ़ते थे यूनिवर्सिटी शिकागो में, उन्होंने हमारे सपोर्ट में एक कैंपेन शुरू कर दिया, पूरा देश में हल्ला मचा दिया. तो इंडियन एम्बेसी डर गया, कहा अरे भाई इसको क्या ले जा रहे हो, उसमें जितना बदनामी होगा उससे अच्छा है कि इसको छोटा मोटा भाषण देने दो, और इसको ऐसा कोई मच्छर की तरह इधर उधर काटता रहेगा, क्या प्रॉब्लम है. तो आई वॉज सेव्ड. अदरवाइज द लीगल ओपिनियन वॉज कि तुम सिटीजनशिप बदल दो, नहीं तो तुम भारत सरकार का चंगुल से बच नहीं सकोगे. सो इट इज़ वेरी सिचुएशनल. आपको पर्सनली सोचना पड़ेगा, और अपना सीनियर लोगों से, जो लोग उस प्रोसेस से गुजर चुके हैं और फिर भी सिटीजनशिप सरेंडर नहीं किया है, उनसे पूछना पड़ेगा कि आपने ऐसा किया और आप 40 साल 50 साल का हो गए, आपको क्या क्या नुकसान उठाना पड़ा.
Of course, on a personal level, there are many things that you do that interest you or that benefits you. But on the larger Tibetan issue, there is always there are a lot of things to consider. Let us say if all the Tibetans become citizen of India and likewise in Europe or in North America, then what would happen to the citizenship of His Holiness the Dalai Lama? Will His Holiness also become an Indian? In that case, then what could be the repercussion of our movement inside Tibet? What will the Tibetans inside Tibet think? Oh, now there is no more hope for the Tibetan struggle. So that message will definitely go. And there are also smaller issues concerning the Tibetan refugee community. If all Tibetans become citizens of India, the land and all the other services that has been provided to the Tibetans for so many years, will that continue or not continue? So these are larger technical issues that concerns the that invites the attention of the Indian government in dealing with the Tibetan refugee community. And at a personal level, of course, there are certain benefits or no benefits. For me, I still like to retain my Tibetan identity. By carrying that IC, it helps me to remind me that I'm still a refugee and that we still need to struggle. So that's my personal view.
Sure.
So thank you very muji, Professor Anand Kumarji. We are going through a lot of dynamism in this region. Overall,
Somebody has a hand.
you have a question? Okay, one last question then. Nganzu diyo da kangen chishu juk dugal hamudil du matu wache dudo che lawa jang chozo nan le dene chigidwa ta da chondo nan le dene chigidwa.
Sorry for extending time. I want to ask you that is there any situation, let's say in the early distant future, that India might give up the issue of Tibet completely, and including the activities on its soil, if China is willing, at that time, China is willing to fulfill a bunch of Indian demands, a list of Indian demands, that's which is critical right now. The Arunachal issue to support the Indian membership at UN Security Council, and the military intrusion, the stable visa, and last, above all, if they promise a big package of investment in India also. In that given situation, is that possible that in any future or any time that India might give up the issue of Tibet completely, say deny that there's no such issue and there can be no such activities, including the Tibetan administration, NGOs, or any activities related to Tibet issue? Is that possible? Do you think? I'm just asking.
The ultimate fear of the Tibetans.
Yes. I thank you for this question. Just like this question about the real reason for China being unhappy with India is the Dalai Lama is most irrational question. That China is unhappy because of Tibetans. There is a big history, and it's written by all diplomats by now who have served in China from India, including Tian Kong. Treaties are generally for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. The treaty between India and China was only for 8 years. So he asked Krishna Menon, कि 8 साल क्यों है, 10 साल क्यों नहीं है? And there was no reasonable explanation till we got those shocks from China. They made the road and access, and then they became aggressive from Ladakh to Arunachal and Nagaland, and Nepal. This question is to be put to the present Prime Minister on your behalf by people like us. This is a question which will make any regime come down, tumbling like a pack of cards. India has some record of consistency so far. There are 3 examples. One, South Africa. China did business with South Africa, racist South Africa. But India, right from 1948 till Nelson Mandela became president, remained committed to anti-apartheid struggle. Vietnam. On Vietnam and America became friends. But India has not changed her stand about America being wrong in carrying on the French legacy of occupying South Vietnam and killing and getting killed in the fields of North Vietnam and South Vietnam. And third, about Israel. They supported PLO and Palestinians' cause, and they remained committed to it till there was an understanding between Arafat and Israelis. So Tibetan tragedy is partly India's mistake also. Indian establishment ignored the warnings of His Holiness of Dalai Lama and did not read the situation correctly. As late as 1956, Dalai Lama did not want to go back, and Jawaharlal thought that he will be convincing Chou En-lai and the Chinese to deal with Tibetans democratically and politically correct way. And he failed, and he himself got betrayed by the Chinese. So that is not possible. No amount of investment in India will make Indian people ready to forget its commitment for the Tibetan cause. Politicians have their problems and they have to work it out. But ignoring the Tibetan identity, Tibetan freedom is related with India's security. Indian border becomes engaged with Chinese border. And somebody said about the buffer state status of Tibet. That's the only guarantee for peace. Otherwise, India will be nibbled gradually by Chinese, bit by bit. And there is a strategic consensus about it. Only problem is that there is no capacity of India to resist China strategically so far. And there is no military solution available in 21st century. So this ultimate fear obviously is like, am I going to die tomorrow? Should keep us aware and keep us healthy. कि बहुत ज़्यादा खाना नहीं खाना है, बहुत ज़्यादा शराब नहीं पीना नहीं, कल मर जाएंगे. और गाड़ी पार करते समय देखना है कि लाल बत्ती है कि हरा बत्ती है. That fear is a good fear, a healthy fear. And you must keep on asking every Indian who comes to talk to you about the commitment of Indians towards Tibetan cause. But so far as this is concerned, is the last possible option for Indians. And that will be very dangerous, very suicidal.
Okay. Professor Anand Kumarji, you just you covered not just the current political situation in India and its relevance to Tibet, but also the whole geostrategic, geopolitical dynamism that is happening in the region in the present day. Thank you very much for your time. You have been supporting, as I called you, the lifelong friend of Tibet. You have been supporting Tibet for so many years, and with your current activism and political life, I'm sure you will be playing a much more stronger role. And you have been a voice for Tibet, and we expect you to, we seek your continued support to purchase in future also. Thank you very much for your visit. Thank you.